think that whole show as a collective is just banter. I've got so much money! And like, I know what's funny, let me decide. Don't tell me when to laugh. And someone insults you, I can guarantee that means they really like you. Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, I am Yvette and I moved to the UK last year, and what a year I chose. I'm sharing my British journey with you. Firstly, sorry for being MIA. I know I feel like I'm always saying sorry, but this time I feel like I have a legitimate excuse. I got quite ill. Was it COVID, I hear you ask? We'll never know because I couldn't get a test. On one hand, it could have been like it was, it fit the bill, as it were. However, I was unable to get a test to check if it was COVID, so I just treated it like it was COVID just to be safe, and just, isolated, etc. And because of my work, I do go into hospitals, so it would make sense. And I'm also kind of hoping it was COVID because it was fairly mild for me in terms of it was, if there wasn't this narrative around COVID, I don't think I would have raised it. I wouldn't have gone to the doctor or anything in a normal world. So if I can get away with that being my COVID experience and getting the antibodies, I'm more than happy for that to happen. And then I don't have to worry about being a carrier and all that stuff. So regardless, I'm better now. And I'm here to make a video that I've had on my list for some time and I'm very excited to make. I was actually doubly delayed with making videos because I had videos filmed that I was going to edit and upload, and the footage got corrupted. So then I was sick, so I couldn't film because it was gross, and then I couldn't use the footage I did have because it was corrupted, so it was extra long waiting. So I'm so sorry. I'll try and be better. I feel like that's the problem with YouTube, is that you don't really get like sick days, like, a normal job. For today's topic, I want to do a video on British humour. So I have often touted how much I love British humour, and I think it's by far the funniest, nuanced type of comedy there is. And I've actually been watching a lot of Taskmaster. I don't know if you watch that show. I don't think I've ever talked about it. I love Greg Davies. It's just too much fun. I was watching that and I was like, I've got to make a video because I know if this show was in America, they just would not follow the nuances of the different types of humour there is as well. So yes, I thought I'll do a video explaining everything about British humour, the different types, because there is so many, and I guess my favourite examples of those. So we'll get into it. The number one most obvious and I guess different thing with British humour that I don't know if it's not in Australia and it's not in America is that it's very self-deprecating. So Brits love to put themselves down, also put others down, but we'll get into that in a minute. So their default humour is to like highlight your own flaws and have a laugh at yourself. I think it makes people feel more humble and more approachable, and yeah, not arrogant. And so I think if you're going to compare it to America, I think that's why sometimes there's like cultural conflict, is just the way we communicate. You could be a crazy amazing surgeon, neurosurgeon, and you'll make a joke about having crap hands or like being bad at timekeeping, or being, I don't know, an awful cook. You might be like, oh well, okay, I'm amazing at something, but let's not talk about that, let's talk about what I'm crap at, because we can connect more on that. And I think so much British humour is like that, even if you watch panel shows. Ricky Gervais talks about this a lot. So he's one that he's often self-deprecating. I've watched interviews with him and he'll say that like, obviously very financially well off, he's one of the richest men in Britain, and he lives in a mansion in Highgate or Hampstead or something, but he doesn't come out on stage and go, I've got so much money and like, I'm so amazing. What he does is he comes out and talks about how fat he is, or how dumb he is, or something that like makes him a common man, I guess. And so that is often the number one thing. If you're in like a casual conversation with someone, they will put themselves down, even just like as a side, like, here, I cooked you dinner, I hope it doesn't poison you, something like that. My favourite all-time comedian does this, and that's Richard Ayoade. He is a presenter and comedian, but he's been in like the IT crowd. What else has he been? He does like Travel Man. so a travel man. Travel Man's a perfect example of this, actually, because Travel Man, it's like just him being uncomfortable. Was it An Idiot Abroad as well? Carl Pilkington. Like, they play up this character of like stuffy old men, nerds who don't like anything. That's their character, and that they hate everything, and that's the joke, because they're missing all the culture. Jack Whitehall is also another one that puts himself down a lot, so he plays up the poshness and the absurdity of being so posh. But once again, he's in a Ricky Gervais situation. He lives in a big house in Notting Hill or something, so he's obviously fine, but he won't talk about his wins, he'll talk about his flaws. I think second to self-deprecation, if that's a word, is sarcasm. Brits love sarcasm, and I have been known to be fairly sarcastic, so it speaks to my soul as well. So this one is a bit more nuanced, because they'll say something that's absurd or not true or ridiculous, but they'll say it in the same tone and cadence as the rest of their speech. Yeah, dinner was really nice. I loved the cake, and the cake was disgusting, you know? And you've just got to like know what they mean by that cake was amazing, in that they hated the cake. Or common ones would be like, well, I guess these are kind of just like, you know, innuendos, but they'll say like, oh, it's a very interesting outfit you have on. I mean, it's like, it's awful. So they're not really meaning it's interesting, I guess. But I don't know if that's sarcasm. It's probably just more like nuance. My favourite comedian who kind of plays up this sarcasm and a good show would Peep Show. Peep Show does lots of this, particularly David Mitchell's character and David Mitchell in general. So he also does a panel show, Would I Lie to You? Another personal favourite of mine. And he is king of sarcasm. So the other host, Lee Mack, he just goes in on him like so sarcastically, playing up the absurdity of whatever the lie is. So to see it in action, I fully recommend those. So the example I have is, oh, so you don't know how to answer the phone? I absolutely love it when my train is delayed. And I really like how loud you play your music. I love it when my train's delayed. That's a really good example of sarcasm. So you can normally identify it being hyperbolic and an odd emphasis on things. Like, I love when my train's delayed. Also, it doesn't make any sense. Another one is irony. So we've talked about how they use sarcasm as like, and it's usually like an exaggeration. They also do an understatement, which I think is quite funny, is that, so I was going to give an example of sarcasm. If it was an awful day outside, you'd go, it's a lovely day, isn't it? Which is like just sarcasm, because it's not. But you could, what the understatement would be is, if it's like an awful day outside, super windy, they'll go, it's a bit windy, isn't it? A bit windy. And then another way that's like just outright saying something is less than. The other example of this would be deadpan humor, which Brits are known for, is where they'll just say a joke, but just like have no response. So I think this is quite common when you're watching sitcoms, because the scene will play out in the sitcom and the jokes will be flying, but there's no laugh track, which I think can highlight it. I do not like a laugh track personally, so I'm okay with it, but yeah, so you can look at that like almost every British sitcom doesn't have a laugh track, and so you can see the jokes are just said, and there's no, I guess within the context of that, there's no acknowledgement of the joke. It's for the audience, it's not for the scene, I guess. If you're watching a sitcom and they make a joke, you don't expect people in the sitcom to laugh. In an American sitcom, you would expect the audience to laugh, but in UK it's just silent, and they let you have your minute at home with it, which I think's, I don't know, I like that because I think if you have a laugh track, I think it kind of disrespects your intelligence personally. Like, I know what's funny, let me decide, don't tell me when to laugh. One thing I haven't touched on, talked on the nuances of like how subtle humour is, and you've got to know like the inflections and the hyperbolic and understatements, but another factor which is so different to that is absurd humour. So they also just love going completely nuts, completely mental, out the window, do something crazy. TV shows for this, examples would be The Mighty Boosh, if you've ever seen that. That is just a drug trip filmed. Like there's a whole scene with the naan bread talking to you. Like, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. And so, yeah, Mighty Bush is a perfect example of that. A lot of the Monty Python skits are absurdist. I know the Academy of Silly Walks, it's just silly. It's a silly walk, it's a silly skit, it's absurd. And they'll often like make statements, even like that's obviously within like skit nature, but if you're watching like more relevant, I guess, cultural things, it's more like if you're watching Jimmy Carr host anything, he'll go and make an absurdist joke. Sorry, sirens, London life, you get it. Yeah, so he'll be like, oh, your mum married a bear. Or like, you look like 3 children in a trench coat standing up in your outfit. Things like that are a bit more absurdist because they could never happen. So I've talked about how self-deprecating Brits are within themselves. One thing you can do with your friends if you're British for humour is banter, and that is when self-deprecation starts becoming friend deprecation. So instead of deprecating yourself, you deprecate your friends. It is teasing, fun, light-hearted, jovial, a bit of a nudge. I think a perfect example of this one is if you were to watch the Inbetweeners. They obviously tease and pay each other out all the time. Like that's their main form of communication. Like there's no sincerity at all in any of their interactions, but they're obviously best mates and would probably die for each other. So yeah, I think that whole show as a collective is just banter. So, and even if you're watching, you know, panel shows or any other like just comedians, they will I think that's one of the things that makes panel shows unique and successful in the UK is this form of humour. Yes, there's all the others that kind of tie together, but what makes it unique and makes it work, I think, is all the comedians seem, I don't know if they are or not, but they all seem like they're friends and can like give each other teasers and jabs, and because they're all fast as each other, they can pay it back and pay it forward and all that kind of stuff, and it makes you feel like you're at the pub with your mates, just having a go, having some banter. So yeah, you'll see it everywhere. So if you're in the UK and you're not familiar and someone insults you, I can guarantee that means they really like you. My next one, Innuendo. I used to watch Scrubs, which is not British at all, but there's a character in that goes like, you've got to stop making so much innuendo with the female staff. And he's like, in your endo. And that's all I think of when I see that word now. Anyways, innuendo is like a double meaning, a double entendre, if you were, and generally they're sexual. So this one, Brits are very cheeky. Brits love this one, it's everywhere. I'm gonna give you the most left of center example you would ever think I would give you for sexual innuendo humor, and that's Bake Off. If you watch Bake Off, there is so much sexual innuendo, and it's probably my favorite part, to be fair. That and like just the wholesome helping each other bit. The baking I could care less about. But yes, so most recent episode, also we should have a discussion group for Bake Off. Does everyone else watch it? Are we all on board with Bake Off has saved 2020, by the way? There was a character, not a character, there was a person, not a character. I think it was Linda. She was trying to get her bread to rise, and the host said maybe if you rub it back and forth it'll start rising. Obviously they're talking about bread. Obviously there's a double entendre about what they're actually referring to. There's also a famous term with that show is a soggy bottom. Bottoms are bums in the UK, but she also meant the bottom of a cake. Mary Berry, I miss her. But yes, yeah, I think Bake Off has the best sexual innuendo that you could find, which is the least likely place you would think to find it, but it's amazing. But yeah, tell me your Bake Off opinions below. I'm excited. Who's your favourite? I really like Lottie. I don't think she's that good, but there's just something. I love the goth vibe. Whoever vibes with Noel, I'm into. Also the Irish guy. I need to learn their names. I'm not very good at names. Another type of humour that the UK loves is Macbeth. Is that how you say it? Macbeth? Am I being really pretentious? Macbeth. I don't know. Macbeth. Dark humour. Dark humour is what that means. And like cringy humour. So one in the same. Dark humour is they will make light of very dark situations. Great comedian for this would be Daniel Sloss. He is Scottish. His sister died when he was, I think, 12, I think. And he makes dead sister jokes all damn day. And that's quite acceptable in the UK, within reason. it's kind of that self-deprecation, like they will take something awful and make a joke out of it, so try and lighten the situation. I enjoy dark humor, so yes, perfect example. And then there's also cringy. So cringy, I think you could also look at, I've said Peep Show before, but Peep Show is also good for this as well, is when they, normally in sitcoms, I generally don't like cringe humor personally because it makes me cringe and it hurts my soul to watch people like in those situations. So I tend not to watch them, so I don't have as many examples of this one, but I think Peep Show is my go-to, is that it's when you're watching it and you can see all the puzzle pieces coming together and you as the audience are like, oh no, I can see how this is gonna happen, and you're waiting for it to hit and you're like feeling the emotions that they are. So yeah, Peep Show often, because they put the uptight character into some awful situations. A good example of dark humor is actually Peep Show as well. See, it's a great show. They make a joke about him being a pedophile and always wondering, like, pedophile jokes should not be funny, but they are when it's Peep Show. Or IT Crowd makes a good joke about that as well, where there's a character called Peter File. They say pedophiles here, not Peter. Was it Pedophiles? Pedophiles. It's a pedophile in America and pedophile here. There we go, got it. Is this gonna get flagged because I've said that too many times? Probably. But anyways, yes. So cringing, yeah, it's just where you can see the train wreck coming and you feel it first. I don't like that. I like to not feel it. Embarrassing and in social ineptitude, and this also kind of comes into cringe as well. Mr. Bean, classic example of a character in awful situations, and they just get made worse and worse and worse. If there's a painting, is it the lady with the pearl earring? There's some painting, some famous painting, and he tries to fix it and keeps rubbing it, and it goes and it like disappears, and then he tries to fix it by drawing the face back on, and you're just like, just stop, cringe, cringe, cringe. So that's social ineptitude and cringe. Another one is The Office, the original Office, or the US Office as well. Michael Scott is inept and awful at his job, and we like to laugh at people being awful at things, like I said, when it's deprecating for anyone, themselves or otherwise. Last but not least is laughing at everyday life. They have lots of sitcoms that are just about life, and they find the funny in the little things. So I find sometimes watching American TV is it likes to be bigger and better and grand and has to be amazing. And then you have Gavin and Stacy, and it's just neighbors doing things and trying to, you know, make it work, and then all the absurdity that comes with it. Also, like Outnumbered, that's literally just a family with some kids, and the kids run amok and get into some crazy situations, but it's fairly standard life. There's nothing special about them, you know? It's not like massive houses and like, I compare that to Modern Family. Like Sofia Vergara, obviously absolute model babe, and then there's like massive houses, and they've all got massive jobs, and he's heaps rich. It's like very American dream. And then like Outnumbered is like a struggling family with kids writing on the walls. So they're much more relatable and real, I guess, whereas America's much more like aspirational, I guess. And I think Brits in general find it harder to laugh at someone who's above them. You want to laugh at someone below you or equal. But there is a whole other subset of class humour, which I'm not even going to get into, but hopefully this breakdown of the different types of British humour has helped you, and I've given you some examples that you can go through and see it in action, and better than my poor examples here. So tell me in the comments below, what are your favourite types of humour, whether it's British or American. Perhaps you like that loud, in-your-face humour, which is very American. A good American show, if you're into it, that's kind of almost British, is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They have they're awful people, and they have an everyday life, and they keep getting into cringe situations, and they're very self-deprecating because the actual actors are nothing like these people. They've created like awful characters that you want to see punished. So yeah, 10 out of 10. Danny DeVito's in it. What more do you need? But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Remember to hit subscribe so I can see you next time. Oh, and we hit 13,000 subs, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for sticking by me. So I'm excited to see you next time.